12-year-old Tracy Latimer was severely disabled with cerebral palsy and could not walk or talk. She was, according to those who knew her well, a happy child, whose eyes lit up when someone she loved walked in the room, or when someone gave her a hug, or when she heard music playing. One Sunday morning, her mother and 3 siblings went off to church, leaving her with her father, Robert. While they were gone, Robert took Tracy out to the barn where he had parked his truck. He placed her in the cab. Then he got a hose and hooked one end of it to the exhaust pipe and put the other end of it in beside Tracy. Then he turned on the truck, he closed the barn doors, and he left Tracy there to die of carbon monoxide poisoning. What makes this story even more chilling is the reaction of the media and the general public. They painted the picture of a loving, compassionate, even heroic father who was ending his daughter's pain. The thing is, Tracy's doctor said what pain she had was intermittent and manageable. Killing a child used to be considered the most heinous of crimes, and for a parent to kill his or her own child was particularly despicable. So how did we get to the point where people not only accepted what he did, but lauded what he did? The answer lies in a concept called personhood theory. It originated in the aftermath of the Roe v. Wade case that legalized abortion. For a while, pro-abortionists made the claim that a fetus was not a human being and therefore could be disposed of. However, studies in genetics and DNA led to the realization that an unborn baby is biologically, genetically, and scientifically human. So people had to find a new justification for taking the life of a baby in the womb. They decided to create 2 separate categories, that of a human being and that of a person, defining each in a way that would support their views. As a human being, a fetus has no rights, no moral status, and warrants no legal protection until he or she becomes a person, and only a person has the right to live. This is at the heart of personhood theory. There are a number of reasons why we should reject this theory. I offer 3. I say that it is irrational. Sorry, let me say that again. It is arbitrary, it is irrational, and it is irreverent. First of all, it is arbitrary. Different people define a person in a different way. A bioethicist named Joseph Fletcher came up with 15 qualifications that included such things as the ability to communicate, the ability to reason, the ability to plan for one's future, and to remember one's past. But not everybody agrees with him on these things. Then there is the problem of when a human being becomes a person. Some say at conception, some say at birth, some say not for days, weeks, and even months after birth. Bioethicist Peter Singer suggests that 3-year-olds are in a gray area. But all of this is arbitrary because there are no scientific means to determine any of these things. It's all just a matter of opinion. And history has shown us that where one group has been deemed inferior, human rights have gone right by the wayside. Take the Nazis, for instance. In addition to killing 6 million Jews, they killed 275,000 disabled people in what was called the murder of the unfit. Personhood theory, by being arbitrary, could lead to the justification of racism, gender discrimination, ethnic cleansing, religious intolerance, and in Tracy Latimer's case, euthanasia. Anything you want, depending upon how you define a person. So we must reject personhood theory because it is arbitrary. We must also reject it because it is irrational. Suppose someone tells you that a human being becomes a person at birth. You can ask the question, what in that minute after birth makes a baby a person, something he wasn't a minute before being born? Is it merely a matter of location, in the womb versus outside the womb? I was physically disabled in a car accident. What if I'd been left in a coma? I would not have met the qualifications of personhood, such as being able to communicate or plan for the future. Would that mean I was no longer a person? And when I woke up, would I then become a person again? Even a person who is just asleep doesn't fulfill the requirements for personhood. Does this mean that personhood is episodic? That it can come and go based on whether we're awake or conscious? And what about the elderly woman with dementia? Is she no longer a person because she can't remember your name or where she is or what happened yesterday? Science fiction writer Philip K. Dick showed the irrationality of personhood in a short story called The Pre-Persons. In the dystopian world he created, children could be aborted up until they acquired the ability to do simple algebra, usually around age 12, the age Tracy Latimer was when her father killed her. So we must reject personhood theory because it is not only arbitrary, it is irrational. My third reason to reject personhood theory rests in the fact that it is irreverent. As Christians, you and I know that everyone is made in God's image. That means that we are a formal, visible, and understandable representation of the person of God, who he is and what he's like. Our value is intrinsic. It's part and parcel of who we are as the children of God. It isn't dependent upon our age, our intellectual ability, or whether we can plan for the future or remember the past. We are valuable because God made us that way and because he regards us that way. A statement from Focus on the Family puts it this way. Every single human being, no matter how much the image of God is marred by sin or illness or weakness or age or any disability, still has the status of being God's image and therefore must be treated with the dignity and respect that is due to God's image bearer. Tracy Latimer was God's image bearer. As such, she deserved to be treated with dignity and respect, and not, as one person from the disabled community stated, put down like a dog. Therefore, personhood theory is irreverent, as well as arbitrary and irrational. In closing, I urge you to become knowledgeable about this subject by reading the material and watching the videos I have listed on handout for you. And remember this, Tracy Latimer did not have a voice with which to say, I want to live. But I have a voice, and you have a voice. And I think it behooves all of us who can speak to do so on behalf of those who cannot, be they born or unborn. Otherwise, I'm afraid there will be many more Tracy Latimers.